Leigh was born as Vivian Mary Hartley on November 5, 1913, in British India, on the campus of St. Paul's School in Darjeeling, Bengal Presidency. She was the sole child of Ernest Richard Hartley, a British broker, and his wife, Gertrude Mary Frances. Her father was born in Scotland in 1882, while her mother, a devoted Catholic, was born in Darjeeling in 1888 and may have had Irish, Parsi Indian, and Armenian ancestry. Gertrude's parents, who resided in India, were Michael John Yackjee, born 1840, an Anglo-Indian man of independent means, and Mary Teresa Robinson, born 1856, who was born into an Irish family that perished during the Indian Rebellion of 1857. She grew up in an orphanage, where she met Yackjee. They married in 1872 and had 5 children, with Gertrude being the youngest. Ernest and Gertrude Hartley tied the knot in 1912 in Kensington, London. Leigh's acquaintances suggested she take a minor role as a schoolgirl in the film Things Are Looking Up, which marked her film debut, albeit without being credited as an extra. She enlisted the help of agent John Glidden, who believed that Vivian Hallman wasn't a suitable name for an actress. After rejecting numerous suggestions, she settled on Vivien Leigh as her professional name. Glidden recommended her to Alexander Korda as a potential film actress, but Korda initially dismissed her as lacking potential. She was cast in the play The Mask of Virtue, directed by Sidney Carroll in 1935, and received outstanding reviews. This led to interviews and newspaper articles, including one from the Daily Express, in which the interviewer noticed the rapid changes in mood that had become characteristic of her. This was the first public mention of this trait. John Benjamin, the future poet laureate, described her as the essence of English girlhood. Korda attended her opening night performance, acknowledged his mistake, and signed her to a film contract. She continued with the play, but when Korda relocated it to a larger theater, Leigh struggled to project her voice and hold the audience's attention, resulting in the play's closure. In the playbill, Carroll revised the spelling of her first name to Vivian. In 1960, Leigh reflected on her mixed feelings about her initial experience of critical acclaim and sudden fame, saying, "Some critics saw fit to be as foolish as to say that I was a great actress. And I thought, that was a foolish, wicked thing to say because it put such an onus and responsibility onto me, which I simply wasn't able to carry. And it took me years to learn enough to live up to what they said for those first notices. I find it so stupid. I remember the critic very well and have never forgiven him." Hollywood was in the midst of a well-publicized search for an actress to portray Scarlett O'Hara in David O. Selznick's production of Gone with the Wind, 1939. Myron Selznick, David's brother and Leigh's American theatrical agent, represented the Myron Selznick Agency in London at the time. In February 1938, Leigh asked Myron to consider her for the role of Scarlett O'Hara. After watching Leigh's performances that month in Fire Over England and A Yank at Oxford, David O. Selznick thought she was excellent but considered her too British for Scarlett. Nonetheless, Leigh traveled to Los Angeles to be with Olivier and persuade David Selznick otherwise. Myron Selznick also represented Olivier and believed Leigh had the qualities his brother was seeking. According to legend, Myron Selznick brought Leigh and Olivier to the set of the burning Atlanta depot scene and orchestrated an encounter, where he introduced Leigh to his younger brother, quipping, "Hey, genius, meet your Scarlett O'Hara." The following day, Leigh performed a scene for Selznick, who arranged a screen test with director George Cukor. Selznick wrote to his wife, "She's the Scarlet Dark Horse and looks damn good." It's narrowed down to Paulette Goddard, Jean Arthur, Joan Bennett, and Vivien Leigh. George Cukor concurred and praised Leigh's incredible wildness. She secured the role of Scarlett soon after. In February 1940, Jill Esmond agreed to divorce Laurence Olivier, and Leigh Hallman agreed to divorce Vivian, though they remained close friends for the rest of Leigh's life. Esmond obtained custody of Tarquin, her son with Olivier, while Hallman was granted custody of Suzanne, his daughter with Leigh. On August 31, 1940, Olivier and Leigh married at the San Isidro Ranch in Santa Barbara, California, in a ceremony attended by only their hosts, Ronald and Benita Coleman, along with witnesses Katharine Hepburn and Garson Kanin. Leigh had done a screen test and hoped to co-star with Olivier in Rebecca, which Alfred Hitchcock was set to direct with Olivier in the lead role. After watching Leigh's screen test, David Selznick observed that she doesn't seem right as to sincerity or age or innocence, a sentiment shared by Hitchcock and Leigh's mentor, George Cukor. Merivale provided a stabilizing presence for Leigh, yet despite her apparent contentment, she was quoted by Ray D. Harris as revealing, "I would rather have lived a short life with Larry than face a long one without him." Leigh's first husband, Lee Hallman, also spent significant time with her. Merivale accompanied her on a tour of Australia, New Zealand, and Latin America from July 1961 to May 1962. During this time, Leigh received positive reviews without sharing the spotlight with Olivier. Despite grappling with bouts of depression, she continued to work in the theater. In 1963, she achieved further recognition, winning a Tony Award for Best Actress in a Musical for her role in Tabaraj. Additionally, she appeared in the films The Roman Spring of Mrs. Stone, 1961, and Ship of Fools, 1965. Leigh was widely regarded as one of the most beautiful actresses of her era, and her directors often accentuated this aspect in her films. When asked if she believed her beauty hindered her from being taken seriously as an actress, she commented, "People think that if you look reasonably attractive, you can't possibly act. Since my focus is on acting, I believe beauty can sometimes be a significant hindrance, particularly if you genuinely want to resemble the character you're portraying, which isn't always like your own self." Director George Cukor characterized Leigh as a consummate actress, constrained by her beauty, while Laurence Olivier stated that critics should acknowledge her as an actress and not let their judgments be distorted solely by her remarkable beauty. Garson Kanin shared this perspective and depicted Leigh as a stunning presence whose captivating beauty occasionally overshadowed her remarkable accomplishments as an actress. Exceptional beauties are rarely exceptional actresses, mainly because they don't need to be. Vivian was an exception, ambitious, persistent, serious, and free.